Hi everyone, this is Ma'am Jill Irish Trinidad, and today we will discuss about proving two triangles are congruent. So let's start first with right triangle congruence theorem. These are the theorems that we can use if the two triangles are right triangles. Okay, so let's have the first one. We have the so-called HA or hypotenuse-acute angle congruence theorem. H for hypotenuse, A for acute angle. Okay, what does it say? If the hypotenuse and an acute angle of one triangle are congruent to the corresponding hypotenuse and an acute angle of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So, ganito yan. Say, for example, these are the two right triangles. So, the given are yung may mga markings. So, meron tayong AR is congruent to AM. And those are the hypotenuses. And then, ang right angles natin ay angle RGA at angle MSA. This indicates that the two triangles are right triangles. And then we also have acute angles GAR and angle SAM, itong dalawa. Even though walang marking yan, masasabi natin na congruent sila kasi they are vertical angles. So, dahil meron akong right angle, ibig sabihin dalawang right triangle, at meron akong pair ng hypotenuse na congruent, that's for the H, pair of acute angles that are congruent, that's for the A, then masasabi natin na by HA congruence theorem, the two triangles RGA and triangle MSA are congruent. So that's HA theorem. Kapag dalawang right triangle at merong pair ng hypotenuse at pair ng acute angle na congruent, automatic, the two triangles will be congruent. Okay, I hope you get that one. Let's proceed with another one. We also have the hypotenuse-leg congruence theorem. Hypotenuse-leg, HL, kaya HL. Okay, nandun lang naman sa mga first letters yan. So let's have this thing. If the hypotenuse and a leg of one right triangle are congruent to the corresponding hypotenuse and a leg of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. So let's have this figure. So looking at this, meron tayong hypotenuse na UB, which is congruent to AC. So meron na tayong H. Then right angle natin is angle S and angle R, which makes us know na yung dalawang triangles ay right triangle. And then meron din tayong legs na US na congruent sa AR. Okay, meron tayong right angles, so ibig sabihin dalawang right. Sunod, hypotenuse, the pair of hypotenuse is congruent. And then meron din tayong leg, the pair of legs are also congruent. So with this, we can say that the two triangles are congruent. Triangle USB and triangle ARC. By what theorem? By hypotenuse-leg theorem. Kasi ang binigay na given, dalawang hypotenuse at dalawang leg. At sila syempre ay right triangle. Okay, dalawa na. Next, we proceed. We also have the leg-acute angle congruence theorem. LA, leg and acute angle. Okay, so ang sabi naman dyan, if a leg and an acute angle of one right triangle are congruent to a leg and an acute angle of another triangle, then the triangles are congruent. Let's have this figure. Ayan. Dito sa ating figure, anong napansin? Ang binigay, yung legs na GU at yung RA ay congruent daw. At binigay din mula dito na meron tayong right angles G and R, which tells us that these two are right triangles. Because take note, this angle theorems, or no, this congruence theorems that we are discussing is only applicable for right angles, for right triangles. So, the right angles G and right angle R tells us that these two triangles are right triangles. And then we have acute angles M and P. They are congruent. So we can say that the two triangles are congruent. Paano, ma'am? Because we have the legs, that's for the L, and the acute angles, that's for the A, which means that these two triangles UGM and triangle ARP are congruent by LA theorem. Okay, let's have the fourth one. The leg-leg congruence theorem. Okay, anong sinasabi? If the legs of one right triangle are congruent to the legs of another right triangle, then the triangles are congruent. Okay, let's have this figure. So, in this given naman, so meron tayong dalawang legs, AB and OC to be congruent, one pair. BG and CP to be congruent, another pair. And right angles B and C that tells us that these two triangles are right triangles. So with that, dahil meron na tayong dalawang legs na congruent at sila ay right triangle, then we can say that the two triangles are congruent by leg-leg theorem. So ang congruent natin ay triangle BAG, which is congruent to triangle COP. Alright, those are the four triangle congruence theorem applicable only to right triangles. Okay, let's proceed. We are now going to prove congruence in two triangles. So we have these three steps. So let's start with the first step. Of course, you have to identify what the given are and what is to be proved. And then you will be marking the given information on the diagram or baka namang mark na yung diagram. So either way, okay lang naman. Basta ang importante, you have to identify the given and you know what you're going to prove. Next, after that, you identify the congruence theorem to be used and the additional information needed and why. So, syempre, planuhin mo na. You have to plan. Ano bang congruence theorem yung aking gagamitin? And then, ano yung mga additional information na kakailanganin ko? When you have the plan in your mind, you can proceed with your step 3, which is write down the statements and the reason in a 2-column proof. Yan, magsisimula ka na ngayon ng 2-column proof. So, make sure that the last statement contains what should be proved. Lagi tayo mag-e-end doon sa ating kinakailangang i-prove. Okay? So, let's start an example. Let's say you're going to prove that RAW, triangle RAW, is congruent to triangle RSD. Mamula pong given, ito kasi yon. Identify muna what the given are and what is to be proved. So, nasa figure naman yung given natin. So, the given, we have AR is congruent to side SR. Then, we also have WR is congruent to DR. Okay. And then, what are you going to prove? You have to prove that triangle RAW, is congruent to triangle RSD. So, natapos natin ang step 1. Then, we proceed with step 2. We will plan. Okay, identify the congruence theorem to be used and the additional information needed. Okay, ito na yan. Masasabi natin na yung WRA at yung DRS ay vertical angles. Di ba? Di ba? Pag magkabaliktaran, they are vertical angles. And sabi ng vertical angle theorem na naaral natin before, they are congruent. O, yan yung isa sa mga possible na magamit natin. And then, based on the given, pwede tayong gumamit ng SAS. Kasi meron tayong side, angle, side. Ayan na yung plan. Ayan na yung plan natin. Mabubuo na natin yung ating proof. Pero, kailangan natin ng step 3. Isulat na natin ngayon ating 2-column proof. Let's have the statements and the reasons. Of course, remember, you should always start your proving with the given. So, ang first statement natin, AR is congruent to SR at WR is congruent to DR. Reason, of course, given. Lagi tayong start ng given, ha? And then, kung sila ay congruent, ano pa ang meron tayo? Yung kaninang pinlano natin, yung vertical angles. So, I can say that angle WRA and angle DRS are congruent, are vertical angles rather. They are vertical angles. Reason? Definition of vertical angles. Diba? Ma'am, ba't hindi agad congruent ang inilagay natin? Because sila po ay kailangan mo munang masabi na vertical angle bago mo masabing sila ay congruent. Take note that when you are writing statements and reasons in a 2-column proof, bawat isang statement mo dapat ay merong basis. Hindi pwedeng mag-jump. So, in number 2, you have to say first that they are vertical angles before you say that they are congruent. Okay? Now, let's proceed with the third step. Angle WRA is congruent to angle DRS. Ito na ngayon yan. So, bakit ko nasabi na sila ay congruent? Kasi galing ako sa statement 2. Statement 2 saying that they are vertical angles. Kaya sila ay naging congruent na. Bakit? by vertical angle theorem. Okay? And then, of course, with that, triangle RAW is now congruent to triangle RSD. Paano ko nasabi? Yung ating plano, SAS theorem. Paano naging SAS yan, ma'am? We have the side, the angle, and the side. Sa kabila din, side, angle, side. So we have SAS congruence postulate. I hope you got that one. One more thing, take note that each statement must have a corresponding pinagmulan. Okay? Hindi tayo pwedeng basta maglagay ng statement na walang pinanggalingan. Alright? So, dapat may pinanggagalingan. Step-by-step procedure ito. Okay? Thank you. Let's start with the second example. Let's now prove that triangle REC is congruent to triangle CAR. So, gawin natin yung steps, ha? The first step, identify what the given are and what is to be proved. So, from the given, I can say that RE, eto yun, is congruent to CA. Paano ko nasabi? Ayan, may markings. And then EC is congruent to AR. May markings din. Yun yung aking given. And then, I need to prove that triangle REC is congruent to triangle CAR. So, let's do it. Second step, identify the congruence theorem to be used. Okay, planuhin. Meron na akong dalawang side. Kulang na lang ako ng isang item. It's either angle or side. But from the image, ano ba yung pwede kong masabi na congruent? Can I have an angle to be congruent? Wala akong symbol eh. Can I have a side to be congruent? Yes. Kasi dito, it's very obvious that CR is congruent to CR. Okay, now, I can say on step 2 that CR is the common side of REC and CAR. So, by reflexive property, pwede kong gamitin that CR is equal to CR or congruent to CR. That's my plan. And now, based on the given, kung ganun yung aking napaplano, pwede kong gamitin mamaya yung SSS. Kasi side, side, side. Para ma-prove ko yung theorem, yung triangles na congruent. Okay, let's now proceed with step 3. The plan is already there. Isusulat na lang natin. Okay, let's have the statements. Of course, ang unang step lagi is the given. So, RE is congruent to CA, EC is congruent to AR. Of course, the reason is given. Next, yung plano natin. Yung plano natin, alin ba dyan ang pwedeng congruent? Ito yun. CR is congruent to CR. At ang reason natin, by reflexive property. And now that we have side, another side, and another side to be congruent, I can say that the two triangles, triangle REC is congruent to triangle CAR by SSS congruence postulate. I hope that's clear. Let's proceed with. Let us now proceed with example 3. You have to prove that triangle DOG is congruent to triangle CAT. So, let's start with the first step. You have to identify what the given are and what is to be proved. So, ang given natin, pwede nating masabi na DO is congruent to CA, may markings. Angle D is congruent to angle C. And angle G is congruent to angle T. Also, we need to prove that triangle DOG is congruent to triangle CAT. Let's start with our plan. Identify the congruence theorem to be used. Okay, dito, pwede na natin kayang masabi na congruent na yung triangle mula sa given ko? Yes, kasi based on the given, pwede tayong gumamit ng AAS. Diba? Angle, angle, side. Angle, angle, side. Pwede na mag-AAS. Hindi ko na kailangan magdagdag. So, this is something easier. So, let's have the two-column proof. First one, you have to write the given. DO is congruent to CA. Of course, that's given. And then angle D is congruent to angle C. And angle G is congruent to angle T. So, that's also given. Ma'am, ba't pinaghiwalay mo po? Pwede mo naman pagsamahin. But in this thing, pinaghiwalay natin kasi iba yung side at iba yung angle. Para hindi nakaka-confuse. Okay. And from there, pwede ko na agad sabihin that triangle DOG is congruent to triangle CAT. At anong reason ko? Yung plano natin. You have angle, angle, side. So, that is AAS congruence postulate. Ang mas madali itong example 3. Let's proceed with example 4. Prove that triangle PRA is congruent to triangle PYA. Okay, let's start with a given. From there, we can say that RPA is congruent to YPA. Also, PAR is congruent to PAY. And we need to prove that triangle PRA is congruent to triangle PYA. Let's proceed. Identify the congruence theorem to be used and the additional information kung meron man. Alright. So from there, masasabi ko that PA is the common side of triangle PRA and triangle PYA. Diba? Meron kasi akong dalawang angle pero kulang pa ako. So, kung hahanap ka ngayon sa figure, ano ba yung pwede kong masabing congruent dyan? Yung PA. Congruent yan sa PA. Gagamit ako ng reflexive mamaya. Okay. Now, based on the given, pwede na akong gumamit ngayon ng ASA. Kasi angle, side angle. Okay, let's do it. Two-column proof tayo. Ang statement natin, we have angle RPA is congruent to angle YPA. Angle PAR is congruent to angle PAY. And from there, we can say given, of course. And yung sinabi natin sa ating plano. Diba? Pwede nating masabi that PA is congruent to PA by reflexive property. And from reflexive property, meron ako ASA. Pwede ko nang sabihin that triangle PRA is congruent to triangle PYA by ASA congruence postulate. I hope naintindihan ang example 4. Let's proceed with example. Let us now proceed with example number 5. Prove that triangle BAG is congruent to triangle COP. So let's start with a given. So ang given natin, AB is congruent to OC. Also, BG is congruent to CP. Triangle ABG and triangle OCP are right triangles. Paano nasabing right triangle? Meron silang right angle. And we have to prove that triangle BAG is congruent to triangle COP. Let's now have our plan. So the first one, since the two triangles ABG and OCP are right, hence, we can use right triangle congruence theorem. Yung mga inaral natin kanina. Okay. Pwede rin naman yung mga dating theorems, pero dahil meron naman tayong right triangle, we may use the right triangle congruence theorem. Okay, let's have this. Since the corresponding legs of the right triangle are congruent, we can use the LL congruence theorem to prove that BAG is congruent to COP. Kasi meron tayong dalawang leg. So, leg-leg theorem ang gagamitin natin. So, let's have the proof. Statement natin. First one, of course, is our given. AB is congruent to OC. BG is congruent to CP. Ang reason natin, of course, given. So, iniwalay pa natin yung isa pang given kasi hindi na siya side. So, meron din tayong ABG, triangle, and triangle OCP are right triangles. Given din yan. Now, okay, from there, pwede ko munang sabihin that AB and OC and BG and CP are pairs of corresponding legs of the right triangles. Pinakita ko lang that these two are the legs of the right triangle. And what makes us think so? Ang legs ay yung sides ng right triangle na opposite ng mga acute angle. Gaya yung angle G, ka-opposite niya yun. P, ka-opposite niya yun. O, ka-opposite niya yun. A, ka-opposite niya yun. So, we made that reason. But, sometimes, pwede namang hindi na to ilagay. Okay? And then the fourth reason, I can now say that triangle BAG is congruent to triangle COP. Using what theorem? The LL congruence theorem. Okay. From there, na-prove na natin na congruent yung dalawang triangle. May tanong kaya? I hope natutunan naman. With that, maraming salamat sa inyong pakikinig. Bye-bye!